Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining the
Hi.
workshop. We're going to start now. So this is the last workshop in the PYF and Finllect Collaboration Financial Literacy Program for university students and young professionals. And we have a host here with us today, Monica. And yet again, we're live from the Hub, which is a new co-working space at the Partner Association. So now I'm going to hand over to Monica to get us all started.
Okay, hi everybody. Can you just quickly give me an indication that you can A, see my screen, and B, hear me loud and clear? Just a thumbs up would be good. Okay, brilliant. So if at any point you start to lose me, yeah, please let us know, because last time we had like a lag situation and it was like we realized much later. Okay, brilliant. So thank you everybody for joining in on a Saturday afternoon and taking the first step to actually getting better with your finances. The last time around, we had some interesting discussions about what money means to you and how you can improve your relationship with money. And this time, we're going to deep dive into exactly what the steps are and how you can start today, if not yesterday, right? Cool. So, first, a little bit about me. Why am I the right person for you to be having this conversation with? Number one, I'm someone who understands your challenges and your frictions with money, because I was where you are a few years ago. Another one is that I'm extremely passionate about financial literacy and literacy in general. I have done a couple of startups in the past that have helped me understand, what works for the younger demographic and how we can bring that to you in a way that's interesting. And of course, because I've done a little bit of a deep dive and I want to share my insights and the information that I have with you through the interesting proposition that we've built, which is called Finllect, right? So if you are interested in taking the steps or the practical implementations of what we discussed today and make it a part of your daily life, then I would highly recommend that you download the app and check it out. All right, so let's get started. Last time, just as the same thing happened with us in with the kids when we did a session with the kids, we didn't have enough time to discuss side hustles and what you can do to start earning your money. So let's start with that, right? So who here can tell me what is it that you are, what is that one skill that you're most comfortable with and you think can help you bring some extra income, and are you doing anything? So if anybody wants to share any stories or wants to tell us what they're doing as a side hustle right now, this is your chance to share with us. Anyone?
I can go.
Oh, no one side hustles?
Yeah, I'll start.
Okay. All right. No worries. Bushra, do you want to share your story?
Sure. So,
Can you hear me?
I don't necessarily. I mean, it was a side hustle, but it kind of became the main hustle where I was trying to get off my 9 to 5, and I thought I'd pick up writing and go commercial with it, become a freelance writer, and that became my main hustle for a while. And due to that, I was able to branch off in different kinds of writing. So writing for but also research writing and working for like market research reports and consultancies as well. So there was a lot of scope there, and the side hustle became the main thing.
Okay, very interesting. Thanks for sharing that with us, right? So in addition to Bushra, I think some of the other people in this room also have side hustles, but are connected both virtually and physically, which was quite interesting. So what I'm going to do is I'll share my story, right? So for the longest time, I have always had a side hustle. Initially, in the beginning, it was, side hustling for absolutely free. So no income coming from it, and no real progress being made financially. But through that, initial years of kind of hustling and making sure that I use my skill set to get something productive as an output, I have learned convert that free sponsored kind of service into something that actually pays me now, right? And that's also how Finlec kind of came into into this world, and that's also how the rest of the that runs this product has started their journeys. So I encourage you to sit down today and write the top 3 skills that you think you have that can potentially pay you. And it can be anything in the world, right? It can be giving advice, making amazing Excel sheets, being an artist, being a singer. It could be anything under the sun, right? Cool. So let's move on, right? Since we're talking about exactly how to manage our finances, let's talk about some of the basic pillars, right, of what affects the way you manage your money, right? Can anybody tell me or just share anecdotes of what is it that your friction with money is, or what is it that impacts how you are managing your money on a day-to-day basis? Okay, it's quite quiet.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Asma, we can hear you. Asma to the
I
rest.
was actually speaking before, but then no one was replying, so like I thought like no one could hear me.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Asma. Now we're listening to you.
Yeah. I could say what according to my wants and my needs, when I see that what I want and like I'm the only one who has to get it, and like it's just like responsibility you take, that you have to manage your money in if you want something, and if you really need it, then automatically you start managing your money, and you look through like how to manage it, and like, you just start learning automatically when there's pressure on you and when you need to get something.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's basically the first pillar that we have on the slide as well, right? So taking on new responsibilities. Typically what happens is, we graduate from school and everything is taken care of. In most cases, everything is taken care of, in terms of school fees, transport fees, even the food that we eat. Let's say we eat from outside, if it's canteen food or we go out to get a McDonald's treat, right? All of this is covered for us. There is some magical source from where this money comes in, and all we have to do is spend it, right? But then all of a sudden, nobody equips us or tells us that the moment you step out of this comfort zone and you come into university or you come into the next stage of your life, no matter what that is, the day you hit your 20s, things start to become a little more serious, right? You start to take on new responsibilities. Now, this could be a serious course, right? It could be managing your car. It could be managing a small expense that you are facing on a daily basis, right? All of these things contribute to the way that you are managing your money. So if my dad is paying my bills and all I have to do is go out and hand cash to make sure everything is in place, I'm not taking enough responsibility to think about, okay, how much do I need to next week, or how much do I need to be saving on, right? So the day you start to take on new responsibilities, you understand how much you have and how much you will need in the future, and this has a significant impact in the way that you manage your finances. The next pillar is taking more control and starting to manage your own essential things, right? So again, like I mentioned, your parents are covering rent, transport, fees, food, all of that, and these are big expenses, right? It's not like $50 per week. It's actually a huge significant amount. And the day you start doing your first job, especially in the UAE, as a promoter, or as a data entry specialist or whatever, or maybe your first internship that thankfully paid you something, that's when you realize that now you have to cover your own RTA bills, your own food, your own extra cash that you want to spend on buying something for yourself that your parents may or may not agree with, right? So that's another thing that takes a toll on the way you manage your finances and the way you feel about money or managing your money, right? Now, it's very, very important and extremely critical for you to sit down and understand what essentials you are managing for yourself. If you don't have a clear understanding of these basic things about how you're managing your money, then the impact of these changes or the impact of you taking on new responsibilities and managing your essentials can either be dramatically positive or dramatically negative, right? I've seen people with 25,000 dirhams monthly salaries that have still ended up taking debt and loans, and still, even after taking debt and loan in the form of credit cards and whatnot, the last week of always the week where they're broke. And I say this in literally every session. This behavior and habit is what makes or breaks your financial health in the future. Do not expect to be 35 years old, amazing with your money, if today you don't even know where it's coming from and where it's going. So it's extremely important for you to focus on these two pillars, create notes on your phone, on your Excel sheets, or whatever it is, about some of the basic things that you're actually starting to take control of, right? So these are the first two pillars. The third one is, of course, new opportunities, right? Now, what typically happens is, let's say you're graduating university very soon, and this is the time that you're being offered jobs, or you're being offered internships, or you're being offered various opportunities to source new money, right? And especially now, because we're living in the gig economy, things are not traditional, right? You're not waiting for a job that is going to send you an offer and then you're going to do it for the rest of your life. No, right? Now we have opportunities to freelance, similar to what Bushra shared with us earlier, for many projects at the same time, and you have to manage that work, and you have to manage how much money is coming in from each, how much you're spending, and what is the investment you're making to be good at that job, right? So all of these new opportunities and the way that they're being presented to you also have a solid impact on the way that you are managing your finances, and also the way that you look at money, right? So one key takeaway from this particular slide, or this particular thought, is that please be very, very mindful of the graph, the upward or downward graph of your income, right? Typically what happens is that we go from not having enough money to afford a cheat meal from the university canteen, to being able to afford a really expensive in less than 3 years, right? And what I mean by this is, having enough money to do something like that, right? Please do not let that affect the way you treat people, the way you consume things, the way you spend your money. Because if having a solid influx, or if losing a lot of money really fast has a significant impact in the way that you behave and conduct yourself, then these are the typical red flags of absolute negative relationship with money, right? So be extremely mindful of this graph. It can go both ways, right? We're living in a post COVID world. It's a very, very kind of tight rope that you're walking on. So please, right from the beginning, from today, start taking control of how you're managing your finances, right? Yeah, we'll just pause for a bit, and then we'll start again after, let's say, 5. Sorry about that. We're back.
I was actually going to ask a question.
Go for it.
Okay, I was going to ask a question.
I think you're mute. You're on mute. I'll mute myself.
I was going to ask a question. So we talked a lot about managing our money and how they can help us build a future. But if your income is limited, how can like controlling the ins and outs really make a difference? So if you have like 10,000 or 15,000 or 20,000 in income, it's easier to save. But when your starting salary as young professionals can be sometimes 3 to 4,000, 5, 6,000, then what point is
Right. So brilliant question. Right? And this is also something that all of us are constantly thinking about, right? Is it important for me to start now? Is it important for me to stress about managing my money today, right? My parents are doing it. I have like, very little money coming in anyway, and I have so many expenses. Let me just do, just make ends meet while I can. And if I need some excess cash, I have a source that I can fall back on, right? So there's two very important reasons why it's extremely important for us to kind of start early and start seriously. Number one is that the habits that you're building today with your 3,000 or 2,500 dirham salary check is the habit that you're going to have with your 20,000 or 25,000 salary check, right? And I'm not saying this just from the fluff in my head. I'm saying this after reading surveys and understanding what young people in this region are facing, after speaking to young people, many young people across different age groups, and understanding this is a habit that will either make or break your financial future, right? That's number one. Number two is that, it doesn't matter if that salary check is small or large. It's what you do with it that matters, right? If today I'm earning 2,500 and at the end of the month I'm still able to save 500 dirhams, then that to me is positive financial behavior, right? How you can do it is by breaking things down, building plans, and then sticking to those plans. Why it's important for you to not focus or wait for the time that you reach the 20,000 mark or the 10,000 mark is because, surprisingly enough, you might actually be saving enough money or saving enough with these small checks that will allow you to have more choices, more independence in managing your finances as you grow older. So please remember two things. This is what builds your financial habits for the future. And number two, starting early is a sign of you collecting more and being, more financially independent or financially forward than everybody else. And this is why it's so important. Do not wait until you're 25 or 26 to start taking money seriously. Yeah. I hope that answers your question, Bushra. Okay, cool. Just 1 second. I think the charger is out because it's not charging. Okay, anyway, cool. So what can we do, right? We've been talking about a lot of theoretical things, right? Things that, talk about, oh, what should you do with money? What is your behavior with money like and all of that? But how do you create this system? What do you do to start fixing your financial health, right? So right now, take a book or a piece of paper or even just down on your phones, right? Three things. Number one, what are your sources of income, right? So if it were for me, I would say Finllect X amount, side hustle X amount, and that's it. Or even mom and dad support X amount, right? Second thing on the list, what are your key expenses, right? Now, don't write things like buying my Aldo shoes or going for a trip. No, what are your essential expenses, right? So mine would be, course fee, X amount, my car maintenance, Y amount, my rent, Z amount, whatever, right? The third thing on your list is what is your plan, right? This means what do you want, where do you want to be, and what do you want to do in the next maybe 3 to 5 years, right? So this is similar to kind of jotting down your financial goals, what are your targets for the future, right? So if you can write three things. Now this could be, for example, mine would be financially independent by 27, right? Or completing my master's degree fully funded by 6. So if you guys can take 2 minutes to just write this down on your own pieces of paper and then we can do a quick discussion of exactly what that means. Oh, sorry. Okay. All right. So does anybody want to share what, what their 3 pillars or 3 columns look like?
I'll share.
Go for it, Asma. Wait, I can't hear you.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say my sources of income would be obviously my parents, and then my side hustles, and then whatever money I get on Eid or some extra money I get from my older siblings. I would take that as sources of income. And
Okay.
then my list of expenses would be my tuition fees or my transport fees or like my school books, etc., etc. And then what's my plan would be that I want to complete my bachelor's degree when I'm like by 22 years old. And like I want to be graduated with my bachelor's degree when I'm 22 years old. And then I want to plan on doing my master's degree and focusing on that.
Okay. So
Yeah,
Asma,
not
just a
that.
quick question. You mentioned that your
Yeah.
list of expenses include tuition fees and transport fees. Is that something that you are currently paying for yourself?
Not really. Like I do add in my transport fees, but my tuition fees is from my parents.
Right. So it's really important
Only,
to be a little more careful with what you put on that list, right? Yes, your fees will qualify as a list of expense because it is something that you are contributing to, but your tuition fee is something that your parents are contributing over. If you
yeah.
have plans to add this into your list of responsibilities, then it'll fall under your what's the column. Yeah?
Yeah, I think I could do that in what's the plan, because once I graduate from high school, then that's my main motive is like to pay off my own tuition fees in college.
Exactly. Exactly. So I'll tell you why this is important, right? If you put it in your list of expenses now, on the sheets or on your tracking system, it'll seem like you're overburdening yourself financially, right? And that's
Yeah.
something that can cause a little bit of stress, right? When you look at that number and be like, oh, this is the amount of money that I need to be paying or taking care of, even though you don't have that amount of money coming in, that disbalance will cause a negative impact, right? So I would suggest you move
Yeah.
these to future plans, right? And keep your list of expenses
Yeah.
limited to your transport fees, or maybe your fees that you're paying for like an extra course or a tuition, like a class that you're going for, smaller expenses. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, cool. Does anybody else want to share? No, we're good. Okay, cool. Move on. No worries. Okay. So now, because we've been discussing what it's like to actually sit down and manage your money, let's figure out our systems. And again, I need you to open up your books or your phones or whatever and bear with me as we embark on these next few practical steps, right? Cool. So number one is I want you to write a list of, actual paperwork or things that have your financial income, your statements, or your expenses listed out, right? So hear me out first, right? So for example, you're using a supplementary card or a prepaid card that you've gotten or a gift card from something, right? Please list that down as your actual physical, financial expenditure. Next thing is, if you have any bills or receipts or anything that shows that you have spent X or Y amount at different places, pull that all together and put it in place, right? The next step would be for you to take all of that paperwork and make it or create sheets, or you can jot it down on, user-friendly applications or whatever it is, right? This way, you're taking actual proof, right? Or taking actual financial history and jotting it down and building your system. Now, typically what happens is that you would have spent at 5 different places, and in your head, okay, I would have approximately spent $500 today, right? But when you actually look at the receipts and start to make your finances, you'll realize that you were well over 600 dirhams, right? So it's extremely, extremely important to either connect the dots with your virtual bank statements or your virtual expenditure, or by actually bringing these receipts and jotting them down into real sheets or documents or whatever. Please make sure that you have agreed with yourself what mode of documentation you're going to use, right? Don't use your phone for 1 week, or then an app for the next week, and then an Excel sheet for the third week. Keep everything in one consolidated space, right? Now, the next thing that you need to do right now, you don't have to share this, but please take 2 minutes and jot this down for yourself, right? Figure out what your net worth is. Who can tell me what a net worth actually means? Anybody wants to try? What is it?
I think I with this. I remember you telling us about this, about what
Yes.
a net worth is.
Yes.
Let me guess. I think it includes everything, your income, removing all your other sources of expenses, like removing what you're what all you're paying for, and excluding all that. Your net worth includes at what you do not invest in. I think I don't know how to put it in words.
Yeah,
Like,
brilliant. I
it
think
just
Asma
means
is
something, the amount
genuinely
of money that
learning
you don't
from these
spend.
sessions. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
thanks.
it's like the amount of money that you don't spend in like buying a car or investing in business. It's actually source of income that you save, I think.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yes, it is. That is an extension of your net worth, but in general, what it means is, subtracting your total assets. I mean, subtracting your total liabilities from your total assets, right? So if I currently am earning X amount, my net worth is not that X amount, right? Let's just say that amount is 5,000. My net worth is calculated after removing all of my liabilities, right? So my expenses, if I've taken loans, then what is my installment on that loan? If I owe money to someone, what is that? If there's money from somewhere else that I need to add. So all of these, like balancing the sheet of completely removing your liabilities from your total asset pool is what your net worth is, right? So when you hear that, Jeff Bezos is one of the world's, first, like he's one of the world's richest men or whatever, it actually means that his net worth is that many billion US dollars, right? Removing all of his liabilities, that's how much money he's sitting on, right? So I need you to sit down and write your own net worth and do this for yourself. You don't have to share this information if you're not comfortable, but it's important for you to jot this down so that when you set your financial goals, this can also be another metric that you can associate to your financial future or your financial success, right? If today your net worth is a mere 500 dirhams, your goal should be that by the time I'm X years old, I want my net worth to be at least this amount of money, right? And that will allow you to make more realistic goals about, okay, if my net worth is 50,000 dirhams, then I will be able to afford my master's degree, my bachelor's degree, 5 trips to Paris, and whatnot, right? Great. So you have your paperwork sorted, that habit has been sorted, you have your net worth sorted. Now, the third thing is understanding your cash flow. So from the beginning, we're talking about, okay, what is this money that's coming in? What is the money coming out? But it's not just things that we need to say and discuss, but things that we need to really jot down and track and diligently track, right? How do you do this? Well, if you're using an Excel sheet, then it's going to be a more tedious process. If you're using your phone, it's going to be a more casual process. So try to find the right balance, something that works well for you. In some of the previous classes we had, or in some of the previous workshops, we had some young people telling us that Excel sheets don't work for them, right? Because they're not sticking with them, they're not regular with it. So it's really important for you to test and try out what works for you, and don't get stressed if it doesn't work, the first idea doesn't work for you, because it's, you know, a trial and error process. So be open to the idea of trying different things before you decide on what application or what system you want to build. So what is cash flow? Who can tell us what this actually means? Okay, we have, are there ways to automate this? Yes, Bushra. So of course, you know, I am biased. You can get the Finllect app and automate this entire process for yourself. All you have to do is check in, you know, how much money you're spending. And when you do that, automatically the app will remove it from your budget and tell you how much money you have left. If you have a bank account, if you're old enough and you have a bank account, then all you need to do is link your bank account to the application, and every time you make a your budget gets automatically managed for you, right? And in addition to Finlect, there are so many other applications that you can go out and explore, both applications that you can use on your phone, applications you can use on the web. So it's all about, you know, exploring and figuring out what works best for you. Nice question, Bushra. Thanks. Repetitive cash going in or out? Repetitive cash meaning, like, is the money coming into you, or are you paying a recurring payment? Okay, so if you are making a recurring payment, then that becomes your cash outflow. It's always outflow, right? Because you're paying, anything that you're paying is always out. Anything that you're receiving is always in, right? The goal of conducting a cash flow assessment or a cash flow exercise is to make sure that either your balance is tallying, right? You're at a net zero, which is also very risky, or you have, you know, a higher income than you have, you know, money flowing out, right? Very interesting point has been raised, right? So repetitive expenditure or repetitive income coming in, these are things that contribute to your financial health from a perspective, right? How often are you able to pay your bills in a systematic and organized manner? And these could be bills to Amazon and Netflix, and they can also be bills to your schools and colleges, right? So behavior, your behavior of making these payments is what a bank uses or any financial service provider uses to decide if you deserve a financial service or not, right? All of these cool things about investing and crypto and, you know, being able to access a lot of loan and being able to play with that money, all of this comes after the bank has analyzed whether you are worthy of receiving that money, right? If they think that you're not worthy, then they're going to give you some heavy interest rates and some heavy taxes, and that's going to make it very hard for you to have access to the kind of financial services that you need. That's another very practical and important reason why you need to have a control on your cash flow, right? Okay, so I think everybody's understood what cash flow is and how it works, right? Are we good? Is everybody with me, or are you guys sleeping? Okay, Asma, you're my superstar. I love you. Literally, you're amazing.
We're right here.
She's too good. She's genuinely learning, so that's great. Okay, cool. Now we've extensively spoken about defining our goals, right? So what are these goals and how do you define them, right? So again, let's pull out the pieces of paper or pull out our phones or whatever it is that we have access to, and let's write this stuff down, right? Number one, what is extremely important to you? So we did a quick interesting conversations right before this session. A lot of people told us that no, money is not important to me. I mean, it's not that it's not important to me, but it doesn't contribute or define my happiness, right? So then tell us, right? What is it that is critical to you? My answer to this question would be my education or the impact that I have in the world. These are things that are really important to me. Then the next question is, what type of work do you really enjoy doing, right? Now, because I like learning and focusing on my education, and because I think education is a powerful tool, what I enjoy is building things that make it easy and accessible for people to receive education and build their own impact, right? How I either do my day job, which could be anything, or that's the reason why I'm driven to build, solutions or ideas that help people get there, right? The third question is, where do you want to live in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and then 20 years, right? The answer to this question really defines what your long term financial goals are going to look like. And as a disclaimer, this is something I always say, please be accepting of the fact that your financial goals today and your financial goals 5 years from now are going to be different, right? And they're going to evolve or they're going to completely change. So please be open to that idea and manage your finances in a way that when that day comes, when your financial goals have been completely overhauled, you're able to accept that and still not deter from your path to kind of achieving the goals that you have set for yourself, right? So the last question is a mapping of the previous question, but with a financial element to it, right? You know that you want to live in, let's say, Mumbai in 3 years, then London in the next 5 years. But where do you want to be financially, right? So do you want to live in, in a single apartment, managing all of your expenses in Mumbai in the next 3 years? Or do you want to live with your family and save up and still be working and earning and kind of doing that initial grind in Mumbai in the next 3 years, right? So this is how you map where you want to live and what you want to do with where you want to be financially in that same time period, right? So take 5 minutes, or not 5 minutes, take 2 minutes to really just jot these things down on a piece of paper. And then if you are open to discussing it, we can do that discussion as well. Yeah. Okay, cool. Great. So we'll take 2 minutes.
All 4 questions?
All 4 questions. You don't necessarily have to go into too much detail. Maybe you want to share just one thing, and then that one thing we can trickle it down for all the 4 questions and address it. Let me know when you're ready. So I'll wait for 2 minutes, but if anybody just wants to go in before, that's welcome as well. Yeah, okay. All right, we have a volunteer. Go for it.
Okay, so what is really important to me? Actually, it's health. Health is most important.
No help.
No help, nothing else works.
What type of work do I really enjoy?
What type of work do I really enjoy doing? Something I'm still figuring out, but I understand it's somewhere at the intersection of research and impact.
Third one, where do
I want to live in 3, 5, 10, 20 years?
It's a tough question.
It's a tough question for people like us who grew up out here, because we don't necessarily call one place home. I actually imagine a situation where I'm across countries, like I'm traveling back and forth, but have a permanent home somewhere.
Where do I want to be financially?
Honestly, just to the point where there's stable income
and
support
a family.
Like that's,
I'm not very
ambitious when it comes to money that way.
I want to focus more on
other things, but having a
secure
financially secure life.
Great. So I think Bushra's answers have raised a very important point, right? You don't have to be obsessed with having a lot of money to be able to achieve your dreams or your ambitions, whether it is being able to sustain your family or being able to travel the world and be sort of living the life that you desire for yourself, right? Like she said, health is critical to her, and health comes with a cost. I mean, all of us know this, at least in today's day and age, we do. Like COVID has taught us some serious lessons about, the importance of health and how we should generally start taking care of ourselves and the people around us. At the same time, she understands and she realizes that with that commitment to keeping health as her priority also comes the byproduct of keeping a stable income a priority, right? Now, it's not just about having a stable income, but it's about being able to access the right services, right? So, insurance is a financial service which is really critical, and it comes not just to every people who, at least in the UAE, people who don't have a job that is, typically a 9 to 5 or a business, cannot subscribe to a financial insurance. And then even if I have buttloads of money in my bank account, I'm not going to be able to manage my health expenses. So brilliant, a brilliant answer. And I think also something for all of us to think about, right? If you are ambitious about your career, and if you think, like, for example, something that's different for me is that I am extremely ambitious about my career, right? So my goals are typically about, oh, I want to be able to, my goals are over the top sometimes, but that's what keeps me driven, right? So I want to be able to do like have 4 businesses running at the same time, and for that I need huge capital, or I need to have the right kind of social circles to be able to pull that money as investments. I need to understand how investment works and things like that. So my goals and my financial commitments to my will be very different from Bushra's. But again, this does not mean I'm obsessed with money or she's obsessed with money. It just means that we know what this money means to us and how much of it we will need, right? And that's the point of setting your financial goals. Cool. Does anybody else want to share?
I'll go next.
Okay, cool. So Asma, we'll go with Aksa, and then we'll come back to you. Cool.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
So I just wanted to add that, yeah, I agree with Bushra. Like, I think the past year or so has taught us that how important health is. Like, you could have money sitting in your bank, but if you don't have safety and health, then that money is not useful. But then again, if you link it back to the fact that if you have money, then you can also afford the best healthcare. You have access to healthcare. So in a way, it's interlinked. It's not mutually exclusive, I would say. Good health is dependent on money, and money is dependent on good health, because you can only earn more money if you're physically able to as well. So I think this past year has taught us how important both can be. So I think that's something that I just wanted to add on, and completely agree with both of you when it comes to that. And if I were to say, like, like how you mentioned about being very ambitious, I think I can see that in myself too. But keeping in mind how important health is at the same time. So I feel like our generation at times also becomes very disputed, and we tend to monetize all our hobbies and everything because we don't want to go through the same things maybe our parents went through or people around us went through. So I think that's where Finllect and these workshops come in very handy, because, like I said, this generation is so disputed about what's more important, health or
With access to financial literacy and wellness, I think we're able to bring balance to both.
Right. So yeah,
access.
okay, there's a lag. All right. So yes, I think Aksa, very valid points have been raised, and that brings me to another very critical note that we should all have in our mind, right? So in our previous session, we extensively spoke about financial health, financial wellness, which is a combination of your mental health and your physical health and your financial health, right? So it is important to not chase having a big number in your bank account, because sometimes that puts us in overdrive and we can burn out, and this can be detrimental to our financial future and independence, right? At the same time, sometimes even after planning diligently, doing everything right, making everything, like making all the right decisions, things do go out of control, right? And again, COVID is an example, right? It's not like all of us were eating junk food and doing all of the worst things to our bodies, but still some of us did end up in the ICU and the rest of us were still at home, right? So the same thing is with money. You could be doing everything right and still something will go wrong. But having the mindset that not, money, just having a pool of money or not having a pool of money does not define who I am and what I do, is very important. And that is the true meaning of having a positive relationship with money, right? So do not burden yourself with achieving your financial goals if you are not in the mental space or the physical space to actually work on these things. Give yourself a break and set realistic goals that you can achieve while also not being, self, I would say, by not being, hurting yourself, or pushing yourself far too much, right? So yes, thank you, Aksa, for bringing that up. Asa, you want to still share your story or your?
Yeah, I mean, I was hearing all of your brilliant answers, and I think in conclusion, even I would like to say that health is itself wealth. So like this also, like financial wellness itself also comes into play, that we need to be happy with our relationship with money and have a positive relationship. And this also comes like having good habits and having a good relationship, because if you have a negative relationship with money, it also directly affects your health, and how you have a lot of loans, you're in debt, and then you have so much to pay, and then this itself like affects your health, your mental health, physical health, etc., etc. So like it's important to know how to manage your money wisely, and like this is why I feel like most of us are attending these workshops to educate ourselves more on finances, financial literacy, and like how to use our money wisely.
Yes, absolutely. Cool. So, guys, we've reached the 4 o'clock mark. We're gonna do 2 minutes because I know that we started a little bit later. And I hope everyone's okay with that. Don't really have a choice for the ones who are sitting here, but okay, cool. So, the next step is, prioritizing. So, a huge part of managing your finances is directly associated with where your money is going instead of just where it's coming from, right? So again, bring out those papers or whatever you have in your hand and jot down the answers to these questions, right? I'm going to take you through my answers and then it'll help you kind of reflect and come up with your own, right? So for example, what are your major expenditures? I would say, taking care of my car and the maintenance of the car. Next is running a business, right? The third would be, my sister's healthcare, right? So she has a certain condition that requires support or, financial, investment in like medicines and whatnot. So these would be my top three expenditures, right? How have I prioritized them? Of course, my car expenses don't come above my sister's health. So number one is my sister's health. Then is, would be my day-to-day expenses. And then any other wants that I have, like if I want to go to a show, if I want to spend the weekend with my friends, things like that, right? The next one is, does does making a big expense or something like a car or anything else work for your plans, or does it not, right? So at the moment, no, making a big expense is not something I can afford. I need to at least wait for another 6 to 8 months to be able to even buy something like a MacBook, right? And I know this because I keep my finances very closely, right? Then for a future reference, or like in the next 5 or 10 years, buying a house work for my plans? Yes, definitely. It's in fact something that's on my financial goals list, right? Last question is, are you going to fund your child's college costs? So I think my sister is my child. So yes, of course, I'm going to be bearing her educational costs, her health costs, and her, supporting her dreams and ambitions. But that's again a part of my long-term financial goal, right? So does anybody else want to share their stories, or what their responses to these questions would be?
I think I'll give it a shot.
Okay, all right, Asma, go.
Yeah, so what are my major expenditures? I would say that my personal expenses, something I really require for myself, which I buy for my own money, and my tuition fees or learning a new course, like applying for a class or a new subject course or a new skill set, learning that. And then
Mhm.
how we prioritize them. Yes, I do. Like, I do keep a track of where I want to spend my money first. Like, what are my needs and what are my wants? Like, for example, if I broke my phone, and
Mhm.
if I broke my laptop and I need a new MacBook or I need a new iPhone, even though I have a phone which can survive for like approximately 1 or 2 years. So obviously, I would spend my money in buying a new MacBook because that's what I actually need and require. And then, does a new car, used car, work for your plans? I think right now I cannot afford a car, so I think it's a long-term financial goal that at some point I would need a car, but until then I can work off like getting a new bicycle or like something in return for that. And then would buying a house work for your plans? Yes, it is in one of my financial goals that at some point in some day I need a house. And then are you going to fund your child's college costs? I think yeah, at some point in a day it's like far away. So yeah.
There's time. There's a lot of time. But yes, thanks Asma for that. And I love how you've mentioned the difference between needs and wants and how you're going to prioritize those, because those are some of the very basic lessons we learned in one of our first few workshops, right? Cool. So, how can we be smart with our money, right? What kind of frugal or jugadu ways can we deploy? Well, simply put, we need to be more aware and open our eyes to what student discounts are around, right? Don't be that pricey person who wants to pay full price when there's a 50% discount coupon that you can get, right? And don't just collect this information, but also share it with everybody, right? So tell people around you that, hey, you can get, 50% off on all RTA, trips. If you have a student ID, it gives you a special RTA card. Or if you go to a certain food store or, retail shop, you get a discount for being a student. And don't just collect information, but use this, right? Try to use these discounts instead of overspending and always eating from the same place, right? It helps you explore many retailers. And another very, very important thing is try to use or subscribe to businesses that are smaller and local, because it's not just about doing something that's sourced from here, but it's also about the cost. It's generally always cheaper, right? And they do delivery and it's personalized, and all of that extra quality comes with something that's handmade. So try that as an option. Then the second quick tip would be open to using pre-owned stuff, right? There's a lot of new stores or pop-ups that have come out that basically ask you like less than 50% of the price that you would have to pay for the same dress from Zara or a Mango or whatever, right? So please be open to the idea of pre-owned stuff. And of course, share the load, right? So whatever tips and tricks you are deploying in your day-to-day life to save and make use of whatever advantages you have as a student, don't keep that to yourself. Share it, talk about it, discuss it. Maybe your friend will have an even better tip to share with you that you can possibly deploy in your life. Does anybody want to share some jugadu or frugal tips that you have used?
I think I've definitely shared this one before. I'll repeat myself again.
Okay.
Like I said before, like you mentioned that student RTA card, we get like 50% discount. So like that, we have other more benefits like in Choco Monarch, they have special students day where you get like
Every
any
Monday,
dish for like
right?
12 dirhams. And it's not only for students, but they have other days as well. Like when I did more research, like they have on Tuesdays, they have Women's Day, and then they have specific hours that if you go up to this hour, then you can get under 15 dirhams, under 12 dirhams, any dish. And yeah, and like there are many other discounts. Like I would say, I'll give one example of mine that I needed a new shoe recently, a good branded shoe, and there had been like I've been waiting a long time for any sale, a good sale, and recently there has been this 3-day sale in Dubai across all the malls and centers, like up to 90%. And I recently went and got myself a shoe which was originally 200 dirhams, but I got it for 90 dirhams. So I mean, like you said, that it's very good to like be aware of all the discounts, so that even if you want something, even if it seems impossible, but you can get it under a discount and you can make it possible.
Yeah, for sure. So one hack my sister uses, and she's just 12 years old, is collecting coins, right? So she doesn't let any of us give away change. She always says, okay, if you don't want to give it, if you want to just give it away, then you might as well give it to me, right? And she has saved up quite a lot of money by just collecting these coins. And this is also some of the first things that our parents teach us, right? Put all of your little ED or your small little gifts or whatever you get from your relatives in a little piggy bank, and then one day when you want to buy something that your parents are like, you should buy this for yourself, open that piggy bank and go and get it, right? That feeling is, I think, one of the most rewarding feelings ever. So yeah, I think this is what my sister does, the frugal jugadu thing. And there's another thing that a lot of 20-25 year olds do, at least in corporate offices or like in workplaces, is that they all chip in a small amount of money. It's in India we call it a kitty. I don't know what you guys call it, but we have like you put down a small amount of money. So let's say 1,000 dirhams or 500 dirhams, and they all collect it, and then they give it to the person that needs a big amount of money for an expense, for let's say the month of Jan. And then there's going to be 12 people putting in this money, and every month one person gets this huge sum. And then what they do with that huge sum is either they invest it, or they put it in their savings, or they use it for an expense that they have. So it helps them kind of manage their finances a little better, right? Instead of taking a big chunk of money, you're just paying 500, 500, 500, and there's no interest, right? You don't have to pay any cost or service expenses on top of things. So yeah, that's something, another that's frugal or useful that I've seen people do. If anybody else has any ideas that you'd like to share, please, I think we have 2 more minutes to discuss this. Oh my God, Arsalan, you're married? Right. So the question that Aksa has asked is about, somebody who's a part of the gig economy, which basically means you have a job that's like a freelancer's job, or you're still figuring out, what kind of job you want to do and how you want to get there, right? So how does an app like Finllect help you reach that financial goal for yourself? So number one, this is something that I always say to anybody who asks me, right? Especially a young person who's just starting out. You don't need to be earning money to know how to manage it, right? So even though you don't have a salary or you don't have X amount of income coming in every month, you do have access to money, right? What you do with this money can decide how long it's going to take you to get your next check, or to get your stable income, running into the bank account. You can either invest this money in improving or upskilling, or registering on portals that have access to literally the world, right? Everybody wants to be serviced. They're looking for people who can do it. They're looking for experts. For example, Aksa is a lawyer, and it requires a certain level of qualification to become a certified lawyer in the UAE. But what if her degree is sufficient to give some very basic legal advice to somebody sitting in Pakistan looking for, what kind of law do you do, Aksa? Corporate law. Yeah, looking for advice on how to structure their business, right? So you can go on Upwork or freelancer.com or any of these, Naukri.com type of portals and get that job. But the only way that you will know that this opportunity exists for you is if you use a portal that gives you access to financial literacy, right? And it's not just about chasing that check. It's also about managing your current situation while you're on that hustle or on that, path to getting there, right? How can you set up a bank account without having a stable income? Well, you can get a live account, you can get an e-wallet that's not linked to a bank account. So for example, First Abu Dhabi Bank has a solution called Pay It. All you need is an Emirates ID and to be above the age of 18, and you can open up that account, right? It gets you not just access to put in your cash into a digital form, also allows you, it enables you to pay across many merchants, get discounts, get cashbacks. It's the ultimate somebody to go if you don't have access to a traditional bank account, right? And interestingly enough, we are going to launch a partnership with Payit that will allow you to just build that wallet through the Finllect app, right? So I think what Finllect does for you, it doesn't help you open the bank account, but it helps you figure out the path to get there, right? And of course, if you have further questions, or if you want to take a deep dive into the exact steps on how to get there, we have our in-house, personal advisors and experts who'd be more than happy to help you. So all you have to do is drop us a note at hello@finllect.ae, and we'd be more than happy to support that. I hope that answers your question, Aksa. And if you have any other questions, I'd love to take it.
Thank you for answering that. I have one more question for you.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for answering that. I have a question for you. Another thought that came to my mind was, since this is a platform and application, what is your team doing in order to protect the user information? Because it is at the end of the day very how do you say it, very sensitive information that is being put on this application. So how can I trust this platform? How can I feel safe to use it? And what happens if in case this was ever breached?
Right.
So again,
Extremely important question, right? So how we protect your data is by following regulation and the law, right? We are a certified regulated entity in the UAE. We're not just an app. We have a full-fledged business and a setup here, which basically requires us to follow the rules and regulations of data privacy and protection. We follow and are compliant with GDPR. In the future, when we launch a little more complicated products, we're going to be PCI DSS compliant. We have an in-house compliance officer that manages all of these things, and anything that we have on our database is completely encrypted. So I cannot go on to the backend of Finllect and look at what your transactions look like. I don't have access to that, and I have access to everything, right? So this is how we protect you as a user. In addition to this, we ensure that we don't share your data with any third parties, whether it's Facebook, Google, a bank, or any fintech that we partner with either. What we do provide to them is trends and user trends, or like a breakdown of what services you are using on the app, right? So what is it that you're most interested in, and what kind of products are you looking for? We use this macro data. It doesn't tell us that, oh, Monica likes investing. It tells us that people like Monica in the age group of 15 to 25 are interested in investment and are looking for financial products that are possibly in that line of work. We then take these trends or these insights and help a bank understand that this is what young people want, and come up with an idea on how we can pitch that to you, and how can we build a personalized product for you so that you can use the Finlect's credit score to pre-qualify for it, and then actually get that service faster and more customized for you. So yes, that's how we protect our users. Cool. Any other questions? Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on, right? So this is my takeaway for the session, right? One thing that all of us need to get really serious about today is building your emergency fund. And this is even more important for people that are working in the gig economy, are freelancers, or if, for someone who is close to losing a stable income, like a monthly check, right? Each and every one of us should have enough money in the bank account to sustain the way that we are living today for the next 6 months without any disruption, right? This is why it's important for you to start today. Remember, we discussed budgeting strategies and saving strategies in the last session. When you deploy those strategies, when you have 20% of every check going into your savings account, you will be able to build your emergency fund with the right pace and the right, I would say, priority, in comparison to you just waiting to receive that amount of money and just putting it into the bank account, right? This is why this emergency fund is why it's important for you to build and stick to those budgets, right? So if you have any questions about, how to set up your emergency fund or what the emergency fund should do for you, I'd be happy to take the questions.
I have a question.
I have a question.
Wait, 1 second. Sorry. We just mute this. Yeah.
So where
should I place my emergency fund?
Okay, super interesting, right? You can, if you have access to a bank account, then this should be, in your bank account, right? Please keep it in places that it's easily accessible for you to spend, right? If you're going to be building your emergency fund in a potluck back home, then when you're going to need it, it's going to be very hard for you to access those funds, right? So keep it in a place where it's easily accessible. Don't put your emergency fund in a fixed deposit. This is one of the most common mistakes that people make, right? A fixed deposit is like you putting a pool of money in with a bank or with any financial institution, and it has a timeline attached to it, right? So it locks that money for 6 months or a year or whatever, you know, strategy you've used for that fixed deposit. And then what happens is, let's say 3 months into the fixed deposit tenure, you realize you need money and you need to break your emergency fund. That's actually going to cost you. So you're going to lose money that you have put in a fixed deposit because you need it as soon as possible, right? So ideally, your emergency fund should be stored in a place that A, is super accessible, and B, is using that money shouldn't cost you. It in fact should be something that you can kind of dish out or use at a regular basis, right? So ideally in a bank account or with somebody you trust, like a parent or a guardian, or you can just keep it in a wallet if you have one, like I don't mean like a physical wallet, I mean like a virtual, like an e-wallet, right? And that'll help you manage when you need it as soon as possible. Any other questions? Okay, let's move on. All right, cool. So that's pretty much it. My final advice and tip was to build an emergency fund. Please don't forget about this. And I hope that you had fun today and that you learned something new. I'm sorry about the disturbances and a little bit of lack of continuity today because there's so many things happening around. So yeah, I mean, if you have any questions, if you want to get connected, download the Finllect app. You can drop me an email directly to share feedback or just to tell me what you think about your financial challenges, and I'd be more than happy to have a one-on-one and help you with whatever it is that you're currently facing. Cool. So yeah.
So thank you, Monica. With that, we're about to wrap our last workshop in this program. A huge round of virtual applause to Monica. I have the PYF. It's no small to be doing something like that where you have every Saturday you're sacrificing your Saturday afternoon to do this workshop for an entire community. So a huge thank you to Monica, and the way it's done, I think the proof is in the pudding. So once more, congratulations, Monica, and thank you so much. Very excited about Finllect and the amazing work you're doing, and it'd be exciting to talk about your journey as an entrepreneur at some point as well. All right, one more.
No, I don't want to. I just want to say thank you for having me.
And to everyone who
has been attending, Asma, you've been attending very regularly. Thank you so much. So we had prizes to give away today as well.
I think it's
only fair that at the end of this workshop that today's prize goes to Asma, because you have been so engaged. And
Are you there, Asma?
Are you there, Asma?
Yeah, huge round of applause for Asma as well. She's attended, I think, every session. So yeah.
Your sessions are amazing.
I myself have learned so much from these workshops. Honestly, I thought I had it all figured out, but I'm just getting started, just like most of us. So what I would suggest is everyone go ahead and follow the Finllect page on Instagram as well, because they're going to be putting out a lot of informational content, and they already have quite a bit over there about what does it mean to start building your financial future right now.
And you're gonna see some familiar faces there as well. So really quick.
Some familiar faces. All right. So I will be emailing out information after this workshop with Monica's email, and also some links to get connected to Finllect. So we'll be doing that. But thank you all for attending, and yeah, have a wonderful Saturday.
Thanks, Asma. Bye.
Bye.
Yes, it's done, right? We're done.
Is it saving?